Hello, I am Scott Herbst, founder of Six Flex Training and Consulting, and you are watching or listening to The Flex, a conversation show where we talk with people who are expressing leadership with the intention that it give you access to expressing yours. Today on our show, I'm really excited to introduce you to Tim Plachta, who is the founder of Square 2. And Square 2 is a consulting firm that works with ABA companies to help them scale and get ready for sale and acquisition. This is a little bit different conversation than you may be used to seeing, because today we're really going to get into the nuts and bolts of what it takes to not so much build a culture, but really focus on the foundation of a business. And I'm going to just go ahead and shut up, let Tim say a little bit about how he got into the field, what he's discovered, and then we'll have a conversation about really the operations of business.
Sure.
Tim,
Thanks for having
welcome.
me. Yeah, appreciate it. I'll try to do a quick flyby because I think I have a pretty unique journey and trajectory into
Awesome.
ABA.
Yeah.
And so, background in business management and economics in college. Actually ended up teaching for a number of years, both second grade and middle school special ed math. I had interest in working in finance within the school system, and had been on a path to principalship at one
Yeah.
point. And during my fifth year of teaching, my second daughter was born, Ruby, and she came to us with Down syndrome. And
Mm.
through that journey, our own personal journey, we had gone and seen an estate planning attorney and done some seminars, and I discovered special needs planning for ourselves, and just the nuances that come with having a child with special needs and what that looks like and what lifetime care might look like and the additional savings and investment vehicles and stuff that goes along with that. And I really fell in love with that. So that changed my trajectory in my career path. I
You
ended up,
fell in love with special needs
yeah,
planning?
yep. And so,
Interesting. Awesome.
yeah. So I ended up going and getting my certified financial planning credentials, and
Yeah.
ended up leaving teaching after 6 years and started my own financial planning practice. And I ended up working with two groups of people. One, obviously, families that have children with special needs. And I did some work at the state level. We helped launch the ABLE accounts here in Texas in conjunction with the state and the comptroller's office, and did some public work there. And then naturally gravitated into working with small business owners, and doing consulting for their companies. And
Yeah.
one of those individuals that I started working with was Kirsten Brooks, and I consulted with her.
Yeah. Who, by the way, I'm going to say,
Yeah,
I'm just going to interrupt, is
sure.
actually a previous guest
Yes,
on the Flex, and that's
that
how
that's
we
correct.
connected. Yeah.
That is how we connected. And actually, you had done some work with some of our employees in the past several years ago as well. So I've known about you for several years, and now we've started building our own relationship. So that's been great. Um, yeah, so I met her and we did some consulting. Her company at that point was about 5 years old, 4 to 5 years old, and I worked with her on and off doing some consulting on the back end, just in the background. And I fell in love with what she was doing as a company, and serving children that had special needs. Although if for us it's we run a nonprofit, we work with families that have kids with Down syndrome. We grant college scholarships all across the country. So my wife and I are naturally ingrained in helping children.
Yeah.
And so for us, for me specifically, getting involved and doing something that felt similar to teaching, but was also, helping the community in general and outside of the public, education network, was really exciting for me. So we worked together for about a year, and she had hit a point, and we'll probably discuss this further along, but hit a point where the company had got larger than her skill set um, allowed her to take it. And so she had founded the practice out of her husband's psychology practice, because they continued to get calls. They kept getting calls for ABA services here in Austin. And so she decided to start serving their needs through a separate company. And just it grew and grew and grew. And so I ended up leaving my financial planning practice and joining her as her partner in the company. And we were able to divide the company um, responsibilities anyways. She would focus on clinical. She became a BCBA and focused on clinical. And I was able to help with the business side of the operations, being finance, HR, client onboarding, some marketing, and different aspects there. So, and then I guess fast forward, we ran the company. So I joined in July of 2018. And then within 2 years, COVID hit. And her and I found ourselves at that point with 3 clinics, maybe about 50, 60 employees, and managing COVID.
Yeah.
And um, that was, as anybody listening who operated during that time frame knows, we dealt with all sorts of different issues, both financial, operational,
Yeah.
clinical, emotional, all of it. And so we continued growing during COVID, and we expanded. We actually ended up expanding into Houston because there were clinics in Houston that had closed their doors, and we had friends in Houston that had lost services overnight. And so we were able to jump in and start helping with remote services from Austin and Houston, with the thought that we would just help them tie over through COVID, and then they would end up finding regular services on the other side. And we just ended up continuing to expand and ultimately launched 2 clinics in Houston. And so we ran the company together until November of 2022, at which point we founded a group of investment partners and joined with them. And so the company has now gone through many transitions since then, but that's kind of where we are. And then I took a year off, and now I'm back working with some small practice owners and helping with finances, helping them understand some of the business aspects of their company, and then for some of them, helping prepare them for acquisition, either in the near term or long term.
Yeah.
And it's not
Um,
just acquisition, but also for some of them, sustainable growth and sustainable operations for long period. The ultimate end for all practice owners is not acquisition.
yeah.
And for some of them, it is long-term operations and growth. And that comes with a similar type of stability and growth, a pace of growth, and operational procedures and excellence. And so it can be both.
Yeah. I wanna jump back a little bit because you came in at a place with Kirsten where um it was kind of like she'd taken it as far as her
Yeah.
skill set could. And I don't think that that's unusual for ABA practice providers,
Yes.
probably small businesses in general,
Yeah.
that there's some people out there who either have the training or just the like natural tendency to be able to see how to navigate these things.
Right.
But I think for a lot of people who aren't as business minded, what I tend to see is that they do hit a point, whether it's, I mean, it could be like they've got one person on their team, it will, or I mean, like one other BCBA who's kind of their right hand, and then a handful of employees. It could be that they get to that point where it's 15, maybe it's 30. And I've seen different people at different points like hit that point where
Yeah.
it's kind of like, oh, I don't know what next.
Yeah, and I think, and this obviously isn't a cookie cutter scenario, but I think if you go back 8 or 10 years, and this is changing some now, but most people that started ABA practices were practitioners with the
Yeah.
purpose of serving their community, or they had a child with autism themselves, or they had a family member, or they were former teachers and became BCBAs, and they didn't start a practice with the intention of growing into a regional provider or
Yeah.
having 5, 6, 8, 10 clinics and a whole operations team. They started the company simply out of a passion to serve kids, and lo and behold, they grew outside of what was naturally probably intended, or they thought it would be. And I think that's been typical probably over the last 10 years. And I think now we kind of see some more naturally business minded slash professionally educated companies that start from scratch. But 10 years ago, it's mostly going to be providers starting. and directly launching the company. And that was the same for Kirsten. Was she didn't start the company with any intention of growing it into what it became. She just wanted to serve the communities and the phone calls that she was getting
Yeah.
at the psychology practice. And at that time in 2013, services were scarce and limited. And so
Yeah.
she was filling a need in her community. And then it just became much bigger than she was prepared to handle. And so that's kind of how we ended up with a very symbiotic relationship of being able to divide and conquer and help grow the company.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So let's talk about, I'd love to hear about some of the points that you've seen at which a company could get stuck.
Yeah.
Stuck, I'm thinking like just to that point where I guess what I've observed is companies will think, or owners, leaders will think like, oh, I'm right about there.
Right.
And then something will click, something will break down. And then it's like they take 2 steps back.
Yeah.
And then it's kind of a slog to like get to that point where like, oh, I'm just right there. Things are, and then same thing.
Back again. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that happens in different cycles. So some of it is,
Yeah. So talk
some of
about
it's,
some of those.
yeah, some of it's predictable cycles.
Yeah.
Holidays. Holidays are hard, right? Within ABA, it's November is tough, December is tough. You've got a large portion of salaried staff, and when services stop, they stop entirely, right?
Yeah.
Spring break is tough, and just some of these times when just natural, predictable cycles are difficult. It depends on what your payer mix is, but sometimes January can be really tough if you have a lot of commercial clients that have deductibles. You see that revenue in January is really tough. And so, and if you're working mostly Medicaid, that can be different. So there's some nuance there, but there's some very predictable times of the year that are just difficult in general. But when you stack on top of that, high rates of burnout, just in general in the industry, it's hard. It is. All the clinical jobs are difficult, hard jobs. Um, and I don't know that the industry has been able to solve entirely for that. Maybe some improvements made, and maybe some regression made in that standpoint. But um, just the amount of turnover and burnout can be difficult. And so when you lose a leader, or you lose a BCBA, or you lose a therapist, um, it's difficult to immediately replace that and continue services. And so you see some of those cycles where not only are you dealing with your natural, calendar cycles, but also the natural high rate of turnover, both at the BT, more specifically at the BT, but also at the BCBA level, can be tough as well. And what I've seen from the companies we've worked with and companies that I've consulted with and that we've had discussions with is growth is hard. It's just really hard, right?
Yeah.
So say your first clinic, oftentimes can be one of your more profitable clinics. The founder, the practitioner, is typically splitting many jobs. So they probably onboarded their first several clients. They probably onboarded their first several employees. They probably went out directly and passed out marketing materials and met with, diagnosticians in the area. And they probably learned, whether it be Central Reach or any other, billing software, they probably learned that and did a little billing on their own too. And so you've got them split across all these different jobs. And that creates, one, it's exhausting, but two, that one person holds so many of those different positions. And just as you start to grow and you add a second clinic and you add a third clinic, all those activities are outside the scope of one person.
Mm-hmm.
And so then you start to see, well, now we need somebody that specializes in HR, and we need dedicated billing support, and we need somebody to always answer the phones. And I think the one thing about growth that is difficult is it can be very expensive to grow. So every client that you bring on board, depending on your reimbursement cycles, you typically have to be able to pay that BT and that BCBA for so many days out of pocket before you ever see any reimbursement. And
Yeah.
so every time you grow, it takes money directly to support that growth. And that just continues to escalate and get larger. And, I've talked to some owners that say, I see our QuickBooks and I see our P&Ls, and it feels like we're doing well and we're stable, but yet I always still feel like I'm playing catch up. And that, I think
Yes.
that can be part of it, is every time you're bringing on more clients, you're paying for stuff for what can be up to 60, 90 days before you're able to actually collect on that. And it just creates this, mentality of it's just around the corner. And you kind of alluded to this early, which is like, it's just around the corner. It's just around, we're almost there. We're almost
Yeah.
there. But if you're constantly growing, then you're kind of staying in that state of we're almost there. Um, and the other thing I think is, when you have one clinic and you might have 15 or 20 clients, if your average client stays for, say, 18 months on average, you'll have some that stay for 6 months and some for 3 years, but say 18 months, you have to be able to have 15 to 20 new clients every 18 months.
Yeah.
But if you have 5 or 6 clinics and you have 100 clients, that's 100 new clients just to stay level, that you need to be able to onboard and bring on and serve every 18 months. And it takes a team of people to do that. It takes
Yeah.
dedicated marketing, it takes dedicated HR, it takes dedicated onboarding, it takes all those things. And when you add in BT turnover and BCBA turnover, it takes a team to grow with. And that just becomes, one, expensive, but two, just very nuanced.
Yeah. So so if you're talking about getting I mean, well, let's start there. Um, with going from one clinic, it's fairly profitable,
Mhm.
right? Um, to opening that second location and doing so in a way that doesn't burn out, well, one, your owner
Yeah,
and your owner's team.
sure.
What are some of the things that you can say, here's really where you want to focus your attention and what you want to prepare for?
Yeah, I think big thing to prepare for is division of owner time, right? Is so
Mhm.
you when you have one practitioner, one owner, one clinic, 100% of their time is dedicated to that one clinic.
Yeah.
It can feel like, oh, well, that one's up and running and that's going well. So now I can focus on, I can put all my attention over on this one, right?
Yeah.
And I can get this one up and going because that one's doing great. It's running, it's operating. Um, but as soon as you do put 100% of your focus or 90% of your focus on opening a new clinic, then I think you potentially start to see some of the breakdowns of not having that attention, that focus from the owner on that other clinic. And so while they're spending time opening a second clinic, maybe that's where things start to, oh, I didn't realize if I'm not there, this doesn't get done. Oh, if I'm not paying attention to this, we have procedural drift in this area and nobody's, keeping up with these activities. So that can be one, is it feels like since it's running well, I can just now pivot all my attention and do it again and then do it again. But in reality, it does take that ongoing management of that initial clinic. And dividing and being able to do both at the same time. That's one. I think also one of the reasons we grew actually is wasn't because we woke up in the morning and said, you know what, let's go open a clinic in Katy, Texas, or let's go open a clinic in Pflugerville. Most of it came out of our staff or out of a client need, which we'd have a staff and they'd be with us for, say, 2 years, and they were amazing and they'd been a BCBA, and they would express, I'd like to be a clinic director, an assistant clinic director someday or someday soon. And, if you have one clinic, you can have one clinic director.
Yeah.
But what about the other 3 or 4 BCBAs that have worked with you for 2 or 3 years? They want to be a clinic director as well, right? And so
Yeah.
we found a lot of times we were expanding to support our staff as much as anything else. We love this BCBA. They have the skills to do it. Let's open a clinic and let's get another, clinic going so they can progress in their career and they can grow and they can continue to do the same thing. So um, I think that's helpful. When you talk about, things that can be helpful opening your second clinic, is when you have somebody internally that knows your policies, your procedures, your processes. They bought into your mission, and they're kind of a core employee. Having them to help launch or support or run a second clinic is super helpful. And it
Yeah.
provides some continuity across those clinics.
Yeah. Can I just underline a couple things and, correct me, add,
Sure.
et
Yeah.
cetera. But so one thing I'm hearing in the background is that you've got to be pretty solid in your policies and procedures, and and have them be clear enough that people can pick them up and run them.
Yes. Yeah.
So if you're an owner who is like, I've seen this where it's like the owner exists as though like I'm the one who's got to do it, and I'm the one who knows, and hasn't taken what they know and trained and developed their people in being able to do that. That's going to be a block to growth.
Correct. Yes.
Yes.
And additionally, though, is when that first clinician is doing that with their first clinic, they are doing it typically. And that
Mm-hmm.
also means they're a billable employee. They are generating revenue by actively billing and seeing clients and carrying a caseload because they are doing it.
Yeah.
When that owner steps out of that role and passes it along to somebody else and goes to focus on starting a second clinic or third clinic, they've now created their first major non-billable role.
Yeah.
It's an expensive role. And so now it's not just, oh, I can do everything the way I did before and do it again, because the way you did it before was seeing a caseload and taking away one of those BCBA roles because you held it yourself. Now, maybe it's not full time and a full caseload, but you've now created at the top of the organization, a pretty large non-billable role that then you have to grow and start to support. You did say something important about the policies and procedures before you grow, and I will say it's not like this isn't oh yeah, we did everything perfect and we had everything solid. In fact, not at all. Like, this is learning from like failing forward type stuff.
Yeah,
Was
yeah, yeah. You're here
Yeah,
to share the end
absolutely. Like,
product,
let's
and
not
hopefully we give people
misinterpret
some
the fact that,
shortcuts, right?
yeah, that Kirsten and I had it all together and there was this perfect shiny situation and oh, we had it all figured out. Like, we failed forward a lot and learned a lot. But what we learned, and I think this is super important, growth is not going to solve your problem. It's going to accentuate whatever problems you have. It's going to magnify it. So if your
Yes.
policies and procedures are weak at one clinic, growing is not going to help that. It's just going to magnify it. Those whatever issues you had before, it's gonna intensify. Um, the great things you have about your company, those are also going to multiply. The culture you've built and the people and the support and everybody's buying, that will also multiply. But anything that doesn't run smoothly at one clinic will just become magnified and become more difficult. The ship will get larger and it gets larger to turn.
Yeah.
And so it's going to turn slower. It's going to have more resistance to turning the more clinics you have. So the more solid you are in everything at one clinic, the easier it's going to be to start multiplying that. And we found that out. Like, we had quite a few road bumps when we went through different expansions to say, oh my gosh, like, we thought, if we did this and then we were bigger and then we'd have more money and then it'd be great because then we could hire this other position and then it'd take care of some of these things. And then you realize it's harder to fix those and become more solid and streamlined the larger.
Yeah.
So that's, I think, another piece is a small company's nimble. When you have 15 or 20 employees, it's a nimble company and you can move and you can pivot and you can, retrain and you can get people on board much quicker. When you have 100 employees, 200 employees, 400 employees, like that's a pretty big, mountain to move to get people to buy in culturally or procedurally across new initiatives. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think you're spot on. The more solid you are out of that core company, the easier it's going to be.
Yeah. Well, I love what you said about how your problems are going to amplify as
Mm-hmm.
you grow.
Yep.
So one thing I think I'm hearing is worth asking and reflecting on, and probably getting actually a process for doing this, is to look at things like, well, what are we tolerating? What are we putting up with? What are we hoping works out or
Yeah.
gets better
Yeah.
or wishing would, you know, work out and go away?
Hope is not a business plan. So like I don't know where that came from. That could, somebody famous could have said that. I have no idea, but it's been stuck with me for, since college. Is hope is not a business plan. And so crossing your fingers and just hoping that, oh, if we kind of turn a blind eye to that, like it'll solve itself, or it'll take care of itself. It doesn't. And to your point, if you let it slide, whatever that might be, but the things you let slide just multiply and amplify, right?
Yeah.
And so I think it is a tolerance level of what are you willing to tolerate, um, either for the betterment of the company, the betterment of the clients, the betterment of everybody, is it's important.
Yeah. I think the advice I would give out of what I'm hearing is to get unwilling to tolerate those things you've been willing to tolerate,
Yeah,
because it
yeah,
sounds like they become a headache later on.
they do. And the ABA is a very personal business. It's personal for everybody. It's certainly personal for the families. It's personal for a lot of people that get into it. A lot of the BCBAs we get into it, they get into it for very personal reasons. A lot of the BTs that come on board, they have personal reasons why they're into it. A lot of the founders, and so there can be a delicate line between the tolerance of, I also don't want to crush everybody's passion for why they're here,
Yes.
right? Is like, I want passionate people. I want dedicated people. I want people to love what they're doing. I don't want to be, just telling people they can't do this, you can't do that, and you can't do this, and you can't do that. And there needs to be some level of autonomy within the job for people to enjoy it and love it and feel like they're providing individualized, services. And so I think there is that balance of
Yeah.
what are you willing to tolerate? Because if you tolerate nothing, everybody's going to hate working there. Nobody's going to want to be there. And you're going to provide
Yeah.
services to nobody. And if you tolerate everything, people are going to hate it. Nobody's going to want to work there, and you're not going to provide services to anybody either. So I think there is a blend and balance of trying to find a blend of what can you allow people to be, have autonomy on, and what are just, our no-go policies and procedures.
Yeah. Awesome. Hey, I want to back up. One
Sure.
thing I heard that I thought was, I don't know, I had a little light bulb. Um, you said one of the reasons for your growth was less looking out and saying, "Oh, it's time, our revenue's here. We're going to
Sure.
open another clinic
Yeah.
now."
Right.
And more about people expressing something.
Yeah.
And I just had this vision of a very bi-directional thing where um and I mean, this kind of goes to what you said about it being a very personal business, is that you can cultivate growth by focusing on the growth of your people
Right.
and encouraging their leadership
Yep.
and encouraging like their business like development as managers, as leaders,
Correct.
etc.
Yeah. And same with clients. It goes both ways, which is passion to serve the people that need services as well. I can tell you exactly why we opened every one of our clinics after I joined the company. When I joined, we had a clinic in South Austin and we had a clinic in Cedar Park, uh,
Yeah.
about 30 employees. We opened our Pflugerville office because the clinic director in Cedar Park at the time said, I just got a call from 3-year-old twins. They have nowhere else to go. They're willing to drive to Cedar Park because they really want to work with our company. But if we're able to do services there, they'd love to be closer. 3 months later, we opened a clinic in Pflugerville so we could start serving those two clients, and then that clinic grew. We ended up in Houston because I had friends that called me and said, "What is happening? My clinic just shut down overnight because of COVID? Are you guys shutting down? And I said, no, but we are changing. Things are changing. They're very different. Let's serve you. Let's get a BT out to your home. We'll do home services. We'll do remote. This will look different than what you had, but let's get your child something. And that grew, right? Serving that client. And then they had friends that came and said, well, we want services too, and we want services too. And lo and behold, we ended up with a clinic there. We ended up in the Woodlands because we had a BCBA that was doing great. And she said, I'm moving and I'm relocating. And I want to stay with the company. We opened a clinic in Woodlands. So our focus was not, we didn't open a single clinic where we said, that's a market we need to be in, and the metrics are good, and the population is this. And we followed the clients and we followed our employees, and we focused on their growth and their success. And that's kind of why we ended up with the clinic makeup that we had.
Yeah, awesome. Um, I am curious because while you're developing people who are clinicians who are going to take over clinics, can you share any insights about just what it takes to manage and some things that owners, like you would say, you've got to have your eye on this in addition to clinical excellence, have your attention on these things?
Yeah. Employee satisfaction, obviously, and being able to build a culture within the clinic. So it's interesting because you ultimately end up with a company culture.
Yeah.
You end up with, if you have 4 clinics, you end up with 4 subcultures within that,
Mhm.
right? Every clinic has its own employee makeup and feel, and you kind of find this. It's both endearing and frustrating sometimes. Of when you have a great BCBA, you have all these BTs that just look up to them and follow them, and they're their mentors, and that's very endearing. What becomes difficult is when that person leaves to open a new clinic or to grow within the company, or leaves the company and goes somewhere else or moves or whatever, is maintaining that culture, that
Mhm.
subculture, and not letting it drift. Because if you take your eye off a culture, it'll build its own momentum, sometimes for good, sometimes for bad. So I think making sure that there's a lot that goes into it, but I think one thing, it's hard to transfer culture from just taking one person, plucking them out of a clinic, putting them in a new one, and thinking that everything that happened at this one clinic is now going to automatically happen in the next clinic. That next clinic is going to have its own set of employees, its own unique challenges, its own demographics. Everything about it's going to be different. And we want it to fall within our company culture, within our mission, vision, values. But you somebody needs to, as a leader, not just be successful working with the 5 or 6 people or 10 people that they work with in their own clinic. They've got to be successful working with many other people, because you don't know what the makeup of their next clinic might be. So I think that's just general leadership training, and being able to work with a variety of different people is important. I'd say we did struggle along the way about how much, people management is important, but how much business management do you put on clinic directors? And I don't feel like we ever found, looking back, maybe found that perfect mix of, how involved do you get a clinic director that's a non-owner, involved in finances and budgets and some of those operating metrics. And I think that can be difficult. So there's a blend there where you want them to be bought in, and maybe at some point it's outside of the skill set of the role of the job. So I think figuring out, going back to what you mentioned before, is what you have at one clinic. How involved do you want that director to be in the operation of the company? How much are you willing to share? How much are you willing to put on their shoulders, and have them be responsible for? Or how much are you going to take off of their shoulders and support through a headquarters or a corporate office? I think is important. So the better your structure is, conceptualized, I think, for what that's going to look like, is probably better as you start to expand, that what you're training for early on, so you can give them some of those responsibilities at clinic 1 before they head off on their own to clinic 2.
Yeah. And it sounds like putting in some forethought there
Yeah.
so that you can be clear on expectations
Right.
would be,
Here's what you will be responsible for. Here's what you don't
yes.
need to worry about. Here's what headquarters or some sort of administrative office will take care of for you. We'll take care of this, this, and this, but that means you need to take care of this, this, and this. And that looks different at every company. Whenever I'm speaking with companies or working with them, those structures vary quite a bit. Some as far as they share full P&Ls, clinic level P&Ls with their directors because they want them involved. They want them to know there's an impact to the decisions that you make,
Yeah.
right? When we pay, BTs, or when we have clients out and we have this turnover, when we don't have good company culture and we're, have constant turnover, this is the impact. And then owners who say, I don't want my employees involved in that. I feel uncomfortable if they know the numbers. I feel uncomfortable if they see revenue and they see this. So I think that's going to be a comfort level. I don't think there's a right answer for that. But then
Hmm.
I do think whatever decision you make around that, you need to be able to support and be prepared to support all the things that you're not expecting them to be responsible for.
Yeah, I get that. It's about uh really, I mean, that's part of your culture, I think,
Yeah,
is, and so actually taking some time to get clear on that and then acting in a way that supports that either way.
right. Yeah. And ideally that you have that open community. So communication becomes a lot harder, right? One clinic, the owner's there, probably on site. Maybe they work a couple days from home, maybe not, but they're there, and it's very easy to communicate to the staff,
Yeah.
whatever it might be. When you have 6 clinics, 10 clinics, that becomes, getting an owner's message out or keeping your eye on that stuff becomes much more difficult. And you're usually sending your message to multiple channels. Your message might go to somebody in HR, that might go down to the clinic directors, that might then go to the staff. And that's
Yeah.
very different communication wise. It's not as easy. It does become more difficult. Things get lost in translation. And I think that's one of the difficult things is instead of communicating in person for the owner, they're now communicating through others. And that becomes a growth challenge as well.
Awesome.
Yeah.
We're getting close to the end of the time that we set aside.
Well, that's quick.
I know, right? Um, it always is. So you've shared a lot about like what you've learned. You want to share a little bit about your business now and what you're up to?
Yeah. I mean, I'm happy to is I just, I took a full year off. And the running the company through COVID, going through acquisition, all of it, well, it's very intense.
Yeah.
And it was kind of a moment of, do I want to still do this, or do I want to do something different?
Yeah.
I went back and I did some, I took some classes at UT and I studied some AI and some machine learning, and I have interest in some technology stuff, and I just kept feeling pulled back and gravitating back towards talking with business owners and working with them again. And I think I currently am, I don't want to jump right back in and operate another company, but I do think my journey and Kirsten's journey were pretty unique, but also in a decent parallel to what other people are going through. Of having started a company, Kirsten started the company with no intention of it growing as big as it did, running it through an extremely difficult time through COVID and expansion in general, going through an acquisition with investment partners, which has been very good and very positive, but also it's a lot of work. It's a ton of work to go through that process, and anybody that tells you different is probably sugarcoating it. Even with the best investors, which we feel like we ended up with, such a great group, is it's a lot of work, and everything intensifies and everything moves faster and everything's bigger. Um, is sharing that with other people and just having conversations about, where do you want your company to go? Do you want to keep this small? Because there's definitely a place for locally owned, clinician owned single clinics in the space, and they're needed, and they're very desired in a lot of areas. Or do you want to become a 3, 4, 5 clinic, local provider? Do you want to become a regional provider? Do you want to work with an investment partner or not on growing and scaling? And so I think just having those discussions, having been through it, is very enlightening for people to see. And then I'd say from like an actual consulting standpoint is helping them prepare for it and getting ready for, whatever that is, building a foundation for long sustainable growth, or, you know, preparing and positioning the company to be acquired, and going out and opening those conversations, and taking your company out, and, having some potential investors look at it and have discussions and see if that's a good partnership. I will say, um, we spent almost 2 years looking for the company that we wanted to work with.
Mm-hmm.
So most people listening to this can probably say, well, I get emails. I get emails every month or every week, and I get people phone call me and text me, and they're interested in buying the company and this and that. For us, we were very specific that we wanted to work with somebody that had a lot of healthcare um, experience, and then preferably if we could find somebody that had experience in ABA. And so we were able to find that, but that took a lot of time
Yeah.
and energy. And what that does is that takes away your time to operate, grow, and manage the company. That is a process to go through to actually get your company prepared, but also go through that. It takes a lot of time. And so helping small business owners and the practitioners navigate that um, is important. Or for some that say, hey, I have 2 clinics and I'd love to get it to 5, and then look at an acquisition. I think there's certain nuances to that as well. That's a different path. So just helping
Yeah.
to navigate and be a resource that's been through it. Because I think you can find somebody that can crunch the numbers. The numbers are the numbers, and there's plenty of people that can sit down and crunch the numbers. I think our industry, like I said, it's so personal and emotional.
Yeah.
That's important to consider. It's important to consider your employees during an acquisition. It's important to consider your clients during an acquisition. It's important to consider all those into account if that's the route you're going to take, because we're not selling widgets, we're serving children that really need it at a pivotal time in their life. And so making sure that you're taking that into consideration through the process, I think
Yeah.
it was
I
important for us.
really appreciate that, because I think I've seen um, owners grow a successful practice and sell, and then be really disappointed
Yeah,
with the sale, because it is, like you said, it's a very personal thing,
yeah,
and it's like you're now trusting your baby to someone.
yeah, yeah.
um
And there's also, there's, founder syndrome in passing that baby along to somebody else who might be more qualified to take it to a different level, and to make it larger than it currently is, and serve more families, and
yes.
employ more people, and give them career growth, and help them achieve their career goals, as well as, you have to at some point take a step back. And it was one of the reasons why, I stayed on board for about a year, and we had a CEO come in, and I felt comfortable saying, other people can do this. They have more expertise, and our investment partners have, the experience to do this, and I will go do something else that I'm more experienced in and more capable of doing, and that's okay. And I think not everybody gets to that point of being okay with somebody else taking over their baby.
Yeah.
And of course, it was
Well,
more Kirsten's baby than mine, but still, I was there for 5 years, and that's a lot. It became my baby as
yeah.
well.
Well, and it sounds like part of what you do, aside from just helping, here's what you need operationally, etc., um, is having the conversations that really get at, well, what do you want? And let's get really clear on that, so that we can make decisions that are oriented in that direction.
Yeah, and I think you kind of skate close to an important point that we haven't discussed. And before our time is up, I think it's important, is being a practice owner is extremely lonely a
Yes.
lot of times if you own it by yourself. And I think that was one of the reasons Kirsten was so excited to have me come on board was, you're doing everything by yourself, and you don't have a peer alongside you. Typically, you have employees, and they're very capable and very dedicated, but who are you bouncing other ideas off of that
Yeah.
might impact those people? You can't bounce those off of. And so it can be a very lonely um,
Yes.
position, and not everybody wants a business partner, and that's fine. And I do find that I essentially become kind of a pseudo partner to them,
Yeah.
and being able to soundboard, and you can tell me anything because I'm not managing your employees, and you can treat me like a partner, and we can talk about all the things that you can't talk about with anybody else. And
Yeah.
I enjoy that. And so that's very interesting to provide that support to people.
Yeah. One of our prior guests, Ginger Robbie, calls that a thought partner.
Yep,
And
exactly.
really
Yep.
stress just the
Yeah.
value of having someone to
Yeah.
think with.
Yes,
It's
exactly.
outside your own head, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So very
Awesome.
cool.
Hey Tim, a couple more questions
Sure.
before we get out of here. I'd love asking this question of everyone. What are you proud of?
That's a good question. I'd say I'm most proud of the culture that we built in order to provide the services that we provided. We always went in with, is this somewhere that I'd send my own kid?
Yeah.
And if you ever walk into your own clinic and you feel like, I'm not sure I'd send my own child here, change needs to come, right?
Yeah.
And whatever it is, and it doesn't mean you've built something bad. It just means it's gravitated. Like you wake up sometimes, you walk into your own clinics and go, "Whoa, like what's happening? Let's take a step back." And so I was proud that we were able to build a culture. When you look back at the tenure of our employees and our staff over the years, like our core leadership team, many of them have been there for 7, 8, 10 years. Um,
Yeah.
that culture changes obviously, but you know, that culture can live on. And
Yeah.
I think it's it was so gratifying to come in and work with the people that we were able to surround ourselves with to serve the children that we were able to serve, and get the stories of how much it changed their lives and how much it changed their educational trajectory, um, was just amazing.
Yeah. Awesome. I'm recalling having had the opportunity to work with some of your team.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like
Yeah, and
I can
yeah,
hear it.
many of them
Yeah.
are, many, if not most, if not all of them are still there. I mean, it's just we'd pause occasionally and look back and go, they've been here like we have spent 8 years of our lives with this group of people. They're like,
Yeah.
that's incredible. And to see the growth of them professionally, we had people that came in as a billing specialist and then were eventually running a billing department, with,
Mhm.
you know, half a dozen people reporting to them, and that trajectory of growing along the way. I think that's important too. And I know we're running out of time, but is bringing your employees along for the ride,
Yeah.
is bring them along with you and challenge them and give them more because they want it and they thrive in it.
Yeah.
And don't be afraid to just let them come along for the ride with you and grow professionally, but by giving them more and more responsibility. I think it's super important.
Yeah. People want to grow.
Yeah, absolutely.
Um,
I know better than anybody, right? So,
and then my final question is, how can people reach you?
they can reach me through my website, probably easiest, which is I'll say it slowly, but it's SQ2P, the number two, SQ2P. It's only
Yeah.
four digits. And yep, or email at tim@sq2p.com. And we're there. Um, and just love chatting. You've had this experience with me before, but where I'll talk to people and say, I'm not out, looking for business. I'm just looking for people to talk to and have discussions with, and maybe it evolves into something, beyond that, and maybe it doesn't, and that's okay. Is just being able to provide that support. I love chatting with people, so people are welcome to reach out, just to have a conversation, and know that it's okay if we talk once or twice, and that's it, and have a hour-long conversation. That's great. So I really enjoy it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Tim, thank you so much for
Yeah,
being here.
absolutely.
Thank you for coming on, sharing your insights. And for everyone listening, watching, thank you for listening and watching. As always, if you haven't, make sure you subscribe, go leave us a review, and we will see you back here next time on the Flex.